Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, June the 15th, 2023. Today I want to talk about the Aries point. The Aries point is something I use quite a lot in my astrology, and if you've been listening to my videos you will have noticed that every now and then I do talk about it. So today I do want to go into the Aries point and I want to illustrate it with a few charts. So here's the first chart I want to look at. Here is the chart of Boris Johnson. So what do I mean by the Aries point? The Aries point, you can see there is 0 degrees Aries, okay? And the Aries point is not just 0 degrees Aries, it's also 0 degrees Libra and 0 degrees Cancer and 0 degrees Capricorn, the beginning of the 4 cardinal signs. Or put another way, 0 degrees Libra is making the opposition to the 0 degrees Aries point, and 0 degrees Cancer and 0 degrees Capricorn are making the squares. So it's about conjunctions, squares and oppositions to the Aries point. It's also about semi-squares and sesquiquadrates. Those are the 45 and 135 degree aspects. So, for example, 15 degrees Scorpio is 45 degrees from 0 degrees Libra. So if you've got a planet at 15 degrees Scorpio, it aspects the Aries point by semi-square. So whenever you see something at 0 degrees cardinal or 15 degrees fixed, that is certainly something to look at. So as far as Boris Johnson is concerned, Boris Johnson, who has just resigned as a member of Parliament, he has 2 planets aspecting the Aries point. Can you remember 15 degrees fixed? So he's got Jupiter 45 degrees from 0 degrees Aries. He's got Neptune 45 degrees from 0 degrees Libra, or Neptune 135 degrees from 0 degrees Aries, however you want to look at it. So it's about how he relates to the world in general. That's what Aries is about. It's not just about your partner or your family or your community. It goes way beyond that. It goes to the world at large. So he's got Jupiter aspecting the Aries point. He's also got Neptune aspecting the Aries point. So with Jupiter aspecting the Aries point, he's probably coming over as a larger-than-life person, as someone who is optimistic. And, you know, that Jupiter-Neptune opposition he has, very close Jupiter-Neptune opposition on the Aries point, both planets on the Aries point. That tells us about Boris Johnson's over-optimism. You know, it's not just Jupiter, it's Neptune. Neptune can be a bit deluded, so he can be perhaps over-optimistic about what he can get away with. So let's have a look at another chart. Let's look at Stalin's chart. So does he have anything on the Aries point? On the surface, no, but you know, as you know, I'm really into hypothetical planets. So if we add the hypothetical planets, we see that he has Hades at 15 degrees and 4 minutes Aquarius. In other words, he has Hades semi-square the Aries point. So how does he occur to the world in general? You know, Hades is about death and destruction. So that kind of fits, doesn't it? To take another example, let's look at Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, if you look, he has got there's his Saturn, there's his Mars, and the midpoint of Mars and Saturn is around 0 degrees Cancer. So Hitler has his Aries point being aspected by his Mars-Saturn midpoint. And so Mars and Saturn as a pair are about death and things being held up, and in the end, I suppose, destruction. So that kind of fits very well that Hitler has Mars-Saturn on his Aries point. And as I said before, Princess Diana, she had the Mars-Saturn pair on her Aries point. And how did that work? Well, the Aries point is about the public at large, it's about the world at large, and she died in a very public way. The whole world was watching, when news came in that she died in that tunnel in Paris. So that was how her Aries on the Mars-Saturn midpoint worked. Very different from the way it worked with Hitler. So that's a good example. What about, I don't know, Margaret Thatcher? You see, she's got 15 degrees Scorpio rising, and she's got Saturn reasonably close to the Aries point here. So a very Saturnine person. She wanted structure. She was, well, I suppose she claimed that she wanted to prevent, all the excesses and over expenditure of the 70s. Of course, she pretty much overspent herself a lot, but we don't hear about that. But yeah, she was a Saturnine figure. So when you're looking at a chart, always look at the Aries point and see what planets are hitting the Aries point. Now, why am I bringing up the Aries point today? Well, that brings me into the astrology for today, which is Thursday, June the 15th, 2023. I don't think we need to see all of the hypothetical planets, so we'll make that a little simpler. There you go. So we notice that Mars today is on the Aries point. It's at 15 degrees Leo. And that's going to colour today. When you've got Mars on the Aries point, that suggests a certain amount of aggression, fighting, arguments, but not just on a personal level. On a collective level, on a global level. There's going to be a lot of aggravation. That's going to be a lot of the theme for today. So we do have to be very aware of that. On a more down-to-earth level, I should say that today, Thursday, the moon is in late Taurus. It's void of course in Taurus. So what that means is, for most of us living our ordinary lives, I don't think we can expect much to happen today. As I always say with void of course moons, we can have our plans, we can have these expectations that something is going to happen, but actually not much is going to happen. Now, when you do the void of course definition, you're looking at aspects to traditional planets. You're not looking at Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. Nonetheless, it should be pointed out that the moon is making a sextile to Neptune. So is that a good thing? Well, it depends what you want to do. If you're trying to make money, if you're trying to do business and you want short-term gain, moon sextile Neptune could be deluded. So we might get distracted. There are all sorts of fantasies that might blow us off course. On the other hand, if we're just focusing on spiritual stuff, then the moon square Neptune is going to be fine and is not going to cause us any problems. Another aspect that is exact today, which I think is perhaps a little worrying, is Mercury at 7 degrees 12 Gemini at noon in New York is square Saturn at 7 degrees 12 Pisces. Now, we had this yesterday, this aspect between Mercury and Saturn, and I did point it out. But today, right now, it's exact. So there could be a lot of negativity with that Mercury square Saturn. You know, we might be inclined to think that it's just not going to get better. We might think that we're wasting our time. We might be asking ourselves, what is the point? And it's made even worse by the fact that Mercury and Saturn are on the Hades-Vulcanus midpoint. Hades, the hypothetical planet associated with death and garbage. Then we've got Vulcanus, which is about massive force. There could be some bad things going on. There could be some really bad news. You know, looking at Vitter's rules for planetary pictures, you know, he associates this with atrocities and violence, and news about atrocities and violence. So, yeah, we may find the news disturbing with Mercury square Saturn, even if it's not about atrocities, but the information we get with, you know, it is Mercury. Mercury is a planet of information, and we get that information. We might not like it. We might find it rather troubling. On a more positive note, you know, I talked about Mars being on the Aries point. You know, I think that kind of backs up what I was saying about Mercury and Saturn on the Hades-Vulcanus midpoint, about the potential for violence and war, and it's going to be quite a difficult day in the news, I think. On the other hand, Mars is on the Venus-Uranus midpoint. At least it's aspecting the Venus-Uranus midpoint. And so from a relationship point of view, that might be quite exciting. You know, Venus-Uranus is about sudden happenings in relationships. Mars is about dynamism, assertion, male sexuality. So if you're in the right situation and you're in the right relationship or approaching the right relationship, then yeah, Mars on the Venus-Uranus midpoint may not be such a bad thing. Now, as far as my forecasts for the 12 signs are concerned, let's go. Forecast for June the 15th today, and it's a Thursday. Here we go. Aries. It seems a quiet day, but your capacity to impact the wider world makes all the difference. Romance is sudden. Now, the reason I said that is because Mars, ruler of Aries, is aspecting the Venus-Uranus midpoint. Taurus. It's difficult to focus on material details. Great if you're on a spiritual retreat, not so great if you have to work. Gemini, something is weighing you down, and it may not be personal. For example, it could be the stories you read in the news. Mercury is on the Hades-Vulcanus midpoint. That's why I'm saying that. And it's also, Mercury is also square Saturn. Cancer, and I should say Mercury is ruler of Gemini. Cancer, when it comes to the important things in life, it's best to be a lone operator. At least today it is. Friends are of limited use. Leo, just because you're getting attention doesn't mean that you are accomplishing much. Don't be a victim of flattery and false praise. Virgo, you can be successful in terms of career and business, provided you're ready to push yourself to the limit. Libra, whatever people are talking about and worrying about, it is unlikely to come to much, which should be a relief. Scorpio, single relationships, I mean one relationship on its own, they don't really matter. It's the wider world that should concern you. Your influence and spontaneity can create wonders. Sagittarius, the people close to you are feeling down, and perhaps they have a grim view of the future. Your job is to cheer them up. Capricorn, an annoying day when there's a constant buzz of people with their pointless chatter, and this could drive you half crazy. Try to be tolerant. Aquarius, many of you will be feeling tense, and there may be numerous disruptions, but every message must be read. And Pisces, you're more serious than usual, and as a result, you might not be very popular, but it's a time to hold firm. So I'm now going to move to the I Ching, and as always, I threw the 3 coins in the air, and I asked the question, what will Thursday be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? And the first hexagram I got was the taming power of the small. This is about accepting that we're probably not going to achieve very much, which is kind of not surprising with the moon being void of course in Taurus. We should be limiting ourselves to small gains, at least to begin with. Because if we take on too much, we're going to overwhelm ourselves. And the I Ching also talks about dense clouds, but no rain. It feels that something should be about to happen, but no, we can't expect it to happen. But there is a moving line. And the line that moves is this line here, the 4th line. The 4th line with the break in it. And the I Ching does give an interpretation for this 4th line, which tells us that we may be in a position to give advice. And if we're associated with powerful people, people we're maybe a little afraid of, we may have to tell them the truth. And we may be worried about how they're going to respond to the truth. They might, we might feel that we're taking a huge risk. People want to hear good news, and it might be our job to do the taming, to tell someone that no, this isn't possible, this can't be done, and we have to do it. That's our responsibility. And we might be afraid, perhaps they're going to want to shoot the messenger. But I think it's a time when it's the right thing to do. I think if we're honest with powerful people, I think we will be appreciated. Now, this line does move. It moves from being broken. You can see the 4th line is broken, and it moves to being unbroken. And so we move from the taming power of the small to the creative. So at the end of the day, we're going to feel much more constructive. We're going to feel a sense of our own power. It's a kind of a raw, primal power. We may not be able to see how our power is going to really be able to manifest in the real world because it's just the beginning. So our first job is to just feel our power and feel our creativity, feel our potential. And then, perhaps over the next couple of days, we'll have the chance to put this raw creativity into action and to create something of lasting significance. Anyway, that is all I'm going to say for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.